The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
The hockey gods have been conspiring against Vancouver for way too long, but things might be about to change. You know why? Because of the Detroit Red Wings and Steve Yzerman. Ha ha!
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy first day of August, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, the co-host of Locked On Canucks, and also a Canucks writer currently with Daily Hive Vancouver. Before we dive into today's episode, we got to thank you for tuning in to Locked On Canucks. You know why? Because it is your Canucks every damn day. We're part of that Locked On Podcast Network. They're doing the most for sports fans across the world and for our show. If you haven't done so already, do us a solid by subscribing, liking, following for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, got to let you know today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Go download that Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. When the Vancouver Canucks acquired FIlip Hronek just a little over a year ago, it was met with largely a negative reaction in this market. And my, oh my, how things have changed. So let's talk about it, okay? FIlip Hronek is a Vancouver Canuck. He's signed for the long term. And the path in terms of how he got here is pretty unreal on a number of levels. So let's break down the unreal reason why Hronek went from Detroit to Vancouver. Before we do that, let me introduce my co-host, the guy with JT Miller tattooed on his rear end, Kyle Bowen. How's it going, brother?
Yeah, straight up first tattoos. One of those. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the word, the T word. Okay, the stamp. You know, on top of the right at the lower back. Okay, for real. Do people still get that tattoo? Is that like a hot tattoo still for woman or male? Get that T stamp?
I don't know. I don't know if people still currently get it, but I did see a overly tanned grandma at the beach the other day who had a big old tramp stamp. So
whoa, okay.
Whoa, my God.
Okay, it's okay. It's you know what? I'm proud of her, man, because forever young. What's that song? Forever young. I want to be forever young. Hey, 31 and a half years old. I'm still singing that song. Hey, 31 and a half years old. And I was a young man when this trade between FIlip Hronek and the Vancouver Canucks started, okay? More on that in a couple of minutes. Anyways, my name's Kyle Bowen. That right there is Trevor Beggs. One love to the Don't Those Art Lab for giving us the space to produce the show, okay? They got that West Coast bias, and they give it on the daily. Go check them out at don'tdoze.com, DONTDOZE.com. And man, oh man, we're blessed, man. We made it to August. We made it to August, which means we're closer to hockey really doing its thing again for us. September around the corner. No more assuming the best. Well, I guess we're going to assume the best, but we're going to actually just kind of like expect it, which is a little different than assuming it, okay? The pressure is going to be on, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun for the boys in blue and green or black, yellow, and red. Oh, more on that in a couple of episodes too. Are the Canucks switching jerseys? Who knows? Anyways, let's get right into it, okay? The unreal reason why FIlip Hronek actually got traded from Detroit to Vancouver. Now, some people may read the title and they may be thinking about, you know, the obvious, right? What do you think the obvious is, Trevor Beggs? Do you think it has to do with his quote-unquote attitude problems, which I don't agree with, but do you think that has something to do with maybe him moving from Detroit to Vancouver back in the day?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it has a lot to do with that, but I think you and I both got a couple different angles on this, and, you know, part of me thinks it is perhaps the hockey gods finally smiling on your Vancouver Canucks because, hey, I mentioned yesterday's episode, we talked about goalie graveyard to goalie factory. And the hockey gods have cursed this market, cursed Canucks fans for far too long. And even when this trade was initially made, when we acquired FIlip Hronek, I think most people were not on board with it because he had a Canucks team.
I canceled my season tickets. I canceled my season tickets. I didn't even have season tickets, but I canceled them, man. You know, because like my goal in life is to actually be a season ticket holder for the Vancouver Canucks. You know, again, everyone's like, oh yeah, you Locked On, y'all are killing it, man. Like you guys are gonna get media passes, bro. I don't want no media pass, okay? I just want to buy season tickets, do my own thing. But when they made that FIlip Hronek trade, right, I told myself, dude, I can't. Like, this is Jim Benning 2.0. Alvin's Jim Benning 2.0. What are we doing?
Yeah.
We just got this haul for Horvat, and we just shipped it right away for a guy I don't know. But Trevor Beggs, you knew this guy.
Mm-hmm.
You were still pissed off, too, which is weird. It was just a weird time.
Yeah, and maybe if we got some time, I'll get into what happened with Hronek in Detroit and how did he actually end up in Vancouver. But the crux of it is Steve Yzerman, right? And Steve Yzerman, you got to God bless Steve Yzerman. God bless the Detroit Red Wings because they have set up the Vancouver Canucks to potentially win a Stanley Cup within the next couple of years, right? Obviously, it started with them passing on Quinn Hughes for Filip Zadina in 2018. A terrible move. And you still see comments on articles involving Hughes or Wings fans are lamenting that decision, right? But we're talking about Hronek here. And, with Steve Yzerman, it's crazy in hindsight that he traded him because look at the Red Wings defense right now. It is horrendous. And they traded Hronek at a time where they'd missed the playoffs for 6 seasons in a row. And this is supposed to be a team that is going to turn the corner, is going to finally make the postseason. And their defense is horrendous. They've gone out and they've traded for Jeff Petrie. They got Ben Sherrod. They got Justin Hall. They got all these sad sack blue liners on that team. Moritz Seider's got no support. Is basically what FIlip Hronek was before Moritz Seider got there. There was one season, it was the second season in the league. I want to say it was 2019-20, where Hronek by far led the Red Wings in ice time as a sophomore player. And as a spot he shouldn't have been in, right? He was like a minus 39 that season. The second highest Detroit Red Wings defender in terms of ice time that year was Patrick Nemeth. Nemeth, who's been a 6'7" guy throughout his NHL career. He was second on the Wings in ice time among blue liners that season. So, FIlip Hronek, I think, again, a lot of people didn't know about him. Casual fans didn't know about him because he was buried on a bad team. But he was a guy who always pretty much never played with a good partner, right? Spent a ton of time with Nick Leddy in one season. I think it was the 2020-21 season there. But again, he comes to Vancouver, and why Steve Yzerman traded him, in hindsight, it's, I think it had to do with the contract, right? Maybe they didn't want to give him that raise with other young guys in that organization that were going to command some dollars. But this trade, like the more you think about it, it's looking foolish. And, I talk about the hockey gods smiling on Vancouver. Steve Yzerman, I think, has gone from, this mastermind, renowned GM to a guy who doesn't really know, looks like he doesn't really know what he's doing.
Yeah. So again, like the whole Steve Yzerman angle of this Hronek trade, right? And again, the title of this video is like the unreal reason why Hronek got moved. And, let's be honest, the real reason why Hronek got moved is because Yzerman, A, didn't trust him to be that guy. And B, Yzerman sucks at being a general manager in 2024. It's like, look at even what he did this offseason.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the most confusing GMs out there. And maybe a guy who does not have a lot of pull with agents. For real. Maybe he's burned some bridges. Who knows? But again, that's the real reason. Let's talk about the unreal reason. And again, way back when, I just told you, that's when the Hronek trade happened. Okay, for real. The hockey gods looking after Vancouver and making sure that Detroit is at the helm of destruction when it comes to this type of transaction, okay? Anyways, you remember way back when? Nick Lidstrom. Who Nick Lidstrom? Probably the 70th hockey game I ever watched in my life involved the Canucks in Detroit in, what was that, 2002? And what did Nick Lidstrom do? He broke my heart. He did the impossible. He scored on Dan Cloutier from the middle of the ice. The impossible. A defenseman. Boom, bam. That sucks. Boom, bam. It crushed us because last time I checked, we were up in that series about to do the impossible. Okay, for real. West Coast Express starting to get their thing going. Henrik and Daniel playing decent in the playoffs. Who knows? Maybe we would have been the Ducks of way back when, right? Yet again, Nick Lidstrom, a defenseman, just stabs us in the heart because Dan Cloutier is not that good. And now you fast forward almost 20 years. And within those 20 years, ironically, again, the hockey gods looking after us, the Red Wings gave us our 2 best defensemen. And you can argue that they're going to be the 2 best defensemen of all time. Now, Quinn Hughes, that's the obvious thing, right? Detroit gave us Quinn Hughes. Boom, bam. He's already that guy. He's the best defenseman in franchise history. Bada bing, bada boom. But considering the fact that Hronek just signed a 7-year deal? Was it a 7-year deal or an 8-year deal?
8-year deal. 8-year deal.
8-year deal. Considering that this guy signed an 8-year deal worth $7.25 a year, And if we're going to assume the best on this side of the world, right? West Coast bias, we're only hoping for the best. We want the best. We want the Stanley Cup. You best believe that Hronek's going to be a big part of that. And if that's the case, and he is a big part of that, whether he plays with Hughes or plays on his own pairing or not, FIlip Hronek will go down as the second best defenseman in franchise history. And it all came from the hands of the Detroit Red Wings. Why? Because, again, the hockey gods are like, you know what? You guys had Dan Cloutier. We had Nick Lidstrom. We're going to return the favor. And Detroit and Steve Yzerman have done just that.
Yeah, they sure have, man. And again, hockey gods maybe correcting things after that blunderous goal in 2002. And also, again, the Detroit Red Wings are a team that's had a lot of NHL success. So maybe the tides are evening out a little bit. On the other side, let's talk more about FIlip Hronek and his time with the Vancouver Canucks. And let's talk maybe more so about next season as well. We'll also get to some of your comments too. Again, you're listening to Locked On Canucks, your Canucks every damn day. We'll be back on the other side after we shout at our friends over at Game Time. You know the deal. If you're an everyday, if you're an occasional listener, you've heard me say this before, but there's no other place where you should be buying tickets, or whether you want to see some MLB, some CFL, get some NFL tickets for the season, or go see some concert, comedy, theater, all that good stuff. Make sure you do it all on Game Time, okay? Because Game Time, they got the last minute deals where you can save up to 60% off. What? On buying last minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. They got flash deals, which means exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. They got zone deals. Save more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose your seats for you. You get seat views on the app. And of course, the most important part, you get that lowest price guarantee, baby. Because, hey, it's hard to find low prices nowadays, but Game Time, they got your back, okay? So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Go download that Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
People, we back doing this, and that's talking about your Vancouver Canucks and making a whole bunch of things up, yet making a lot of sense of it, because it's August 1st, and we're talking about your Vancouver Canucks, and more specifically speaking, the second best defenseman in franchise history when it's all said and done, FIlip Hronek, okay? Anyways, Kyle Bound, Trevor Beggs, again at the Don't Doze Art Lab, taking care of that West Coast bias, and also, man, talking about grannies with tattoos, man. Tattoos right above their butt crack, that tattoo, okay? All in all, Trevor, I'll be serious, man. I guarantee that my wife at age 78 will still be banging, okay? She'll still be hot, okay? For real. Gilf. I want that Gilf, and I'm going to have that Gilf.
Damn, bro. That's,
Yeah.
There's nothing sexier than that, buddy.
Yeah. Nothing better than that. Bro, straight up, man. That denture loving. Can't wait for that, man. Anyways, hopefully I don't have to wait till I'm like 80 something to experience that, and also a Stanley Cup. Okay, again, FIlip Hronek, the second best defenseman in franchise history. I want that to be true. And if that's going to be true, it's only going to be because, again, he helps us finally win a Stanley Cup. And if he's going to also be considered one of the best defensemen of all time, aka the second best defenseman of all time, I'm kind of with you, man. I think he has to start his own journey on his own, and I'm warming up to the idea that he's going to play with Carson Soucy. He's not going to play with Quinn Hughes next year. Now, a couple things have to happen for that to happen, but if you look at the depth chart and you look at the money spent and you look at who's available, it's probably in this team's best interest to split apart one of the most dynamic pairings, not only in franchise history, but in the NHL. Dude, I sound like an idiot for saying that out loud. I'm just so scared of Tyler Myers, man. Again, for real.
Well, I think it is the glaring hole in this Canucks team, right? They do need another right shot defenseman, and we'll see if they make a move during the season to rectify that. I mean, we're on August 1st here, so we're a little bit a ways from that. But the thing about Hronek playing with Carson Soucy, and this sounds crazy to say, maybe I'm too bullish on Carson Soucy, but Carson Soucy would still be one of the best D partners FIlip Hronek has ever had. And how effing sad is that, right? Like, this guy in Detroit had nobody. He had no help at all. Okay, here, let me go through. I have it right here over Hronek's last 3 full seasons in Detroit. His top partners, okay? You had Nick Leddy, who has been atrocious defensively for a long time. You had Mark Stahl, Danny DeKeyser towards the end of his career, Patrick Nemeth, who I mentioned. Patrick Nemeth and FIlip Hronek were a top pairing in Detroit that year. I think they had the lowest points in the league. And Dennis Cholowski, a youngster who was never really able to make the NHL. These were his top partners in Detroit, right? And you go back and it was like you had a washed up Nicholas Kronwall. You had Jonathan Erickson, if you remember that guy. Like, Hronek just had nobody in Detroit. Like, it's actually fascinating that he posted the numbers he did playing with absolutely nobody of substance, right? So, I mean, for him, it must have been an absolute breath of fresh air to come to Vancouver and play with Quinn frickin' Hughes. And, again, I think you look at this Canucks team and they have options, right? I think if you can have Quinn Hughes, if the bottom 4 defensemen can at least kind of get their heads above water, you can keep Hughes and Hronek together. But they do have it in their back pocket where you could pair Hughes with a Myers or a Desharnais or even a Juleson, something like that. Maybe Cole McLeod comes back into camp. We're talking about Cole McLeod and Quinn Hughes again. And you go with Hronek and Soucy. I think those are both options. For me right now, it's funny because I was on the train of split up Hughes and Hronek through a lot of last season, especially with him being in a contract year. I wanted to see what he could do on his own. Now that you got this guy signed long-term, I do wonder if the best way to have him live up to that $7.25 million salary is to play him with Quinn Hughes. And if it doesn't work out, then revert to something like Hronek and Soucy.
Well, it's gonna work. It's gonna work out if he plays with Quinn Hughes, regardless. Like, I don't.
Is it gonna work out in terms of the team? That's what I mean, right? I mean, there's 35 minutes where they're not on the ice at least.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Look, a lot of rhetoric around the Vancouver Canucks. This market is hot, and they're full of theories, and a lot of people outside of us talking about these guys often. And there's this conversation out there about the organization leaning towards separating that pair because they want to see if Hronek is leaving anything on the table. Like, is he playing with Quinn Hughes and then kind of not living up to his potential because he doesn't need to? And what happens if he needs to live up to his potential? Does it actually raise the ceiling of this team? Like, if you have 2, I know I got to be careful here, but if they have 2 number 1 defensemen on this team, and can you only unlock that if Hronek's playing with Soucy? And honestly, we have 8 years to see if that's the case. But again, looking at what's happening right now with this depth chart, I again, my heart is telling me that it's going to happen in September and October. And maybe that has a lot more to do with me not entirely convinced in Soucy and Myers. Now, I know they had a lot of good parts last year, but you start to see what happens when Myers is leaned upon, when he has to be one of those guys. Everyone can talk about how well he played against McDavid and dude, again, in the most critical of moments in that series, when the series was on the line, he wasn't good. He was horrible. So if he's going to be relied on to do the most for Carson Soucy, I feel as if that's going to break. Like, he's not one of those guys. Now, if Myers does get the chance to play with Hughes, because they got to balance things out, and I'm not really convinced in Desharnais being a top, like, I don't even want to touch that, right? What Myers has to do, and this is like the big thing with splitting up Hronek and Hughes, like, what Myers has to do constantly and consistently and efficiently is be able to transfer the puck over to Quinn Hughes. Because one thing Hronek does so well and so often, and again, this might be too out of fault from the eyes of Rutherford and Alvin, because maybe they want Hronek to do more, but man, oh man, Hronek always finds Quinn Hughes. And I don't know about you, Trevor, but I think the Canucks have a way better chance of winning hockey games when Quinn Hughes is touching the puck more. And Hronek just whips it to that guy. No look, boom, bam, with the hardest pass, blue line from the left side to the right side, to the right side to the left side. This guy just whips it to Hughes, and it works all the time. If Myers can make that one simple play, especially in the offensive zone, like, just transferring the puck to Quinn Hughes, I think there could be room for that pairing to actually work.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly an option, right? And kind of like what you alluded to. And it's funny to hear us pumping up FIlip Hronek now because for most part of the second half of the season, this guy was taking heat. But I think you and I both saw the potential in Hronek early on. And, he flashed that potential in Detroit too towards the end of his career and through pockets throughout his time in Detroit, that he could be a number one defenseman. And he kind of got thrust into that role out of necessity. But I do think he can be one of the best defensemen in the NHL. And we saw it earlier this season, right? Like, look at even strength. I think he even finished the season as one of the highest scoring even strength defensemen in the NHL, just not a lot of power play time. So, FIlip Hronek, I think his offensive numbers came back down to earth a bit. But like you said, Kyle, I think this guy has maybe like low end number one defenseman potential. And again, this city in Vancouver, we've gone so long with a number one defenseman. You could even argue that when we had the team in 2011, maybe we didn't have a number one defenseman, although maybe Christian Arov had something to say about that. But yeah, I think they could. I'm kind of curious to see how they both perform in their own pairing. But still, I think heading into the season, I lean towards keeping Hughes and Hronek together and then switching course if it doesn't work out. I know I've changed, man. I've changed.
That's what me and you have both changed, man.
Yeah.
We're like fluid individuals adapting to our heart. And you know what? That's the beautiful thing about life, man. Ebbs and flows, baby. And here I am saying split those two guys up. And here you are saying, keep keep one of the best pairings in the league together, which probably makes the most sense out of all this banter. Okay. Anyways, Kyle Bound, Trevor Beggs, Locked On Canucks, more rambling, and we'll get to all your comments. Most of your comments on the other side, and have some fun because I definitely want to ask Trevor more about his past. Okay. We're talking about gilfs. We're talking about the future. We're talking about our hot grandma type wives. What? There's hot grandmas? What? No, I mean like hot. Yeah, okay. Anyways, we've been talking a lot about the future. I want to ask Trevor where he was when Cloutier led in that goal, okay, and how he was feeling because it was early in our relationship with the Vancouver Canucks, and I just want to tap into that. Anyways, Locked On Canucks, hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll be back on the other side. Beggsy, who we shouting out?
No ad read here, but just a reminder that if you own a business or have a friend that owns a business and you want to make me your biatch, I will do an ad read for you. Touch base with us. We do have some spots and we're looking for some local sponsors heading into the season. Reach out to us. And again, have the best damn ad read of all time here on Locked On Canucks. Your Canucks every day.
People, we back doing this, and that's talking about your Vancouver Canucks. Kyle Bowen, Trevor Beggs. I got to remind the people that, if you want to get in touch with us, the easiest way to do so is, hop on your toilet, do your business, and join the Discord. Yes, the link in the bio gives you access to conversations with the people, man. Always talking about the Canucks, even in August. It's about to ramp up again. September around the corner. I'm going to Mexico this month, but man, oh man, I would love to just sleep through it just to get to hockey season and just to see if like these guys got it, man. It's the pressure's on. It's so different than it was last year. And I'm just fascinated to see what the F happens with your Vancouver Canucks. Speaking of your Vancouver Canucks, you guys, man, just commenting away. Okay. Look at this comment from SK93. Okay. I don't know if this is Trevor Beggs' burner account for real, but he's saying that, Kyle, man, you got to get on the Darnay hype train, man. He's going to be great. What is he living with Rick Tocchet and Adam Foote right now? Like, does he have the head start? Unreal, man. Great. Okay, Trevor. Like, what does? How does it happen? How does Darnay upgrade here? Like, it just seems impossible for me to see this guy be good out of the gate. Like, he has a 2-year deal. I'm more expecting him to be quote unquote better, like in 2025, 2026.
I think you're not putting enough faith in this coaching staff. I mean, look, I would have had the same opinion as you maybe a year ago, but look at what happened this past season. Adam Foote, Rick Tocchet turned Noah Juleson into, again, we ripped this guy through the first few games of the season when he looked terrible out there. They turned this guy into a respectable NHL defenseman. They turned Tyler Myers from one of the biggest laughing stocks, one of the biggest frustrations in this market, to a low-end top 4 defenseman. I mean, that is working absolute miracles. If they can do that, I'm pretty confident that they can get a lot more out of Vincent Desharnais. So
Yeah.
I'm way more optimistic in terms of my Canucks fandom in general, but certainly about what this coaching staff can do with the defensemen on this team.
Speaking of those defensemen, look at this comment from Vancouver is my life. Okay, will splitting up Hronek and Hughes lower Quinn Hughes' point production? Again, we touched on the technical side of things, right? Quinn Hughes being able to put up a lot of points last year, like, don't get me wrong, the dude's really talented, but a lot of that has to do with FIlip Hronek always giving this guy the puck. For real. So if Myers can replicate that, or whoever Darnay can replicate that, then maybe, just maybe, he keeps up those point totals. But with all that being said, I don't give a beep, yo. I don't give a if Quinn Hughes puts up 90 points next year. We got the Norse. We saw that side of Quinn Hughes. This guy's hitting 100 points if our power play doesn't suck. If Pettersson doesn't suck, Quinn Hughes is putting up 100 points. For real. It's just the truth. I don't need to see that, though. I need this guy to save it all for the playoffs, because there was a period there where Quinn Hughes, offensively speaking, and it happened to be at the most critical time of the year, wasn't the same player in the playoffs. For real. He was really good defensively. Really good defensively. Look at the micro stats, the data. He was one of the best defensemen in the league in the playoffs through those 13 games. But offensively speaking, I wouldn't mind if he saved up those points during the regular season for the playoffs.
Yeah, I think most fans feel the same way, right? It's at this point, the Canucks have tasted the playoffs, they tasted some success. You want to see this team, compete for a Stanley Cup and get all the way to the finals and win that goddamn thing. So yeah, regular season doesn't matter as much anymore. But that being said, I mean, Quinn Hughes is one of the best players on the planet. I mean, I agree with you. I could certainly see him taking a step back in terms of points, but he's going to be one of the best defensemen in the NHL no matter what. And there's just ebbs and flows in general, right? Like, Cale Makar's not going to lead defensemen in points every year. Adam Fox isn't going to lead defensemen in points every year. There's going to be shakeups at the top, and that's okay. Quinn Hughes is always going to be near the top of that list.
Yeah, 100%. Look at Infamous with this comment. He's really liking how Hronek is only 26, but I didn't know Hronek was only 26. This guy looks like he's 28 and a half years old, bro. Trevor, man, what were you doing at 26 years old? Like, what's an appropriate story, okay? Keep it F and PG, okay? Like, give me just a random story about you when you were 26 years old. I'll try to do the same. Then afterwards, we're going to kick it all the way back to like 2002 and talk about where you were when Cloutier led in that goal from Lidstrom that ultimately started this hockey god karma give back to the Vancouver Canucks. Again, Lidstrom does his thing. 20 years later, we get Hughes and Hronek. It all balances out. But yeah, what were you doing when you were 26 years old, bro?
I mean, honestly, so I got married when I was 25. So at 26, like, some of the highlights were I had my honeymoon. I remember being in Yosemite National Park camping. I'm not getting old for this. I'm going to campsite with like hundreds of other people, but we met like the nicest people from Scotland of all time, and went to Australia too. Drove on the wrong side of the road for the first time in my life.
Whoa.
Did a big club crawl in Gold Coast in Australia. So 26 is actually some of my last time partying it up before the kids came along. So 26 was a fun time.
Yeah, 26 was a good time, man. Like, I feel as if I was on the same wagon. Like, it kind of was about to end, like the whole party and the whole being hungover, the whole just taking shots. You know what I'm saying? Just taking shots, like 3 shots in 10 minutes just to warm up or something. You know what I'm saying? Or it's like 11:45 at night. You're at the club, and again, you're just pounding back 2 doubles in 4 minutes because you like the song that's playing. It's like, what the hell's going on, bro? It's like, at that age, you're literally in the alleyway right beside the pint, and you're finding that bottle that you hid behind a garbage can, and you're just sipping it. It's like, yo, just extreme stuff, man. Extreme stuff. Anyways, Kyle Bound, Trevor Beggs, about to sign out here, talking about the past, reading some comments, doing our thing. And yeah, it's August 1st. We got to have some fun here. So again, we're going to throw it back again. Lidstrom scores on Cloutier, 2002. Again, that was probably like the 70th or 80th hockey game I ever watched in my life. Even to that point, I realized that was a really, really horrendous goal, and that shouldn't have happened, and that was going to be catastrophic. And it ultimately was. The Canucks, I don't even think they won a game. They only won 2 games in that series. Like, they never won again after Lidstrom scores towards the end of the second period. Just talk about like your feeling around that goal, but more notably, I'm sorry, just like, that's the beginning stages of your Canucks fandom. So just just encapsulate that for me, because we never really talk about that phase in our life.
Honestly, man, I was like, how old have I been? Was that 2002? 9 years old. I was crushed, man. I was crushed. But I was also still believing that the Canucks could come back and win, right?
Yeah.
even though they're facing like one of the most stacked teams in NHL history, they win 2 games on the road, a game in overtime. I think they won game 2 by like 3 goals. Like all of a sudden, all the momentum's on their side, and then Dan Cloutier lets in that goal, and it completely changed the whole series. And at the time, like, again, so crushed when that goal went in, so crushed when they lost that game. And I'm definitely believing, like, okay, we're up 2-1, we got home ice, we're going to do this. Probably the same stuff I'd believe as an adult. And then you kind of see it slowly slipping away. And even when they were down 3-2, you're a kid, you're still believing, right? But yeah, I mean, I was absolutely crushed at the time. And I think I saw a comment on yesterday's episode after the live stream about how I was ripping on Dan Cloutier, because I didn't start off as ripping on him. I was like, this guy in the regular season actually had at least league average numbers, if not a bit above league average. But man, oh man, he was so horrendous in the playoffs, and all my childhood trauma started to creep back up there.
Well, it's ironic how, again, that was within our first 12-month stretch of watching the Vancouver Canucks. Well, I can only speak for myself. Again, I started watching the Canucks, I think, the year before, and then 12 months later, they're back in the playoffs doing their thing. And I suffered that. And again, Trevor always says that this fan base is one of the fan bases that suffers from the most bad luck in the history of sport. And bro, are you kidding me? That's my introduction to heartbreak. It's like your girl leaving you for another girl, like right away. I'm 9 years old. I wasn't ready for that trauma. And there I was experiencing that. And it's really, really powerful to experience a level of heartbreak watching a ton of sweaty men trying to trying to make your dreams come true. Like watching sports in general. That was the first time where it actually felt as if I had a relationship with sport, something that I couldn't really control. And to be honest, I'm really happy that post Lidstrom scoring that goal, I still stuck it out. I still, was loyal to the Canucks, because that was so early in this tenure of mine. And that this decision to cheer for the Canucks, it's in my blood, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like it just made me a tougher person. Nick Lidstrom made me into a tougher person, man. He made me into the man I am today. Like, if you're dating a girl for 5 years and she turns into a lesbian for a couple months and you can just like survive that, you look back on how you survived that, it's because you survived Nick Lidstrom scoring from the red line when you were 9 years old. Who's tough? I'm tough. Who's resilient? I'm resilient. And it's because of the Vancouver Canucks. Locked on Canucks. My name Kyle Bowd.
Oh man, that's another episode of Locked On Canucks in the books. You know what? I'll bring up one more comment too very quickly from Stephen Wong, going back to the Hronek situation. He mentioned a point that we didn't mention. The real reason Detroit was willing to trade for Hronek is because they had Satter on the right side, who are both first pairing right shot defensemen. Look, I see that logic, but also you look at the Detroit Red Wings defense right now, and it's so horrendous, man. It's so horrendous. So again, I think the hockey gods evening things out. I mean, look, here's the Detroit Red Wings blue line right now in terms of cap hit. Satter's an RFA, but then they have Sherrod, Justin Hall, Only Mata, Jeff Petrie, Eric Gustafson. I mean, come on, man. It's unbelievable. Sometimes you just got to keep good players in the fold. And, last comment here goes to Stefan Johansson, who was saying that, he's never been more excited about Canucks hockey as he is right now since he saw the Winnipeg Jets with Bobby Hull play live in Sweden. Things are turning up for your Vancouver Canucks. Thanks to FIlip Hronek. I think Kyle and I and you are going to start leaving that trauma in the past, because the Stanley Cup, I can sniff it out, baby. Let's go. Okay, last comment to Aaron Gray, my ball hockey captain. A shout out to Begsy for going to his ball hockey championship tonight. It's coming up 6 p.m. Centennial Arena, White Rock. I can't wait, baby. Kyle, you talked about doing shots. Someone's bringing the tequila, but we better win the goddamn game first, man. Let's go.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, Trevor, post breakup, post my girl leaving me for another girl, my ex-girl, I played my best ball hockey. Like, honestly. So, yeah. Anyways, Locked On Canucks, Kyle Bowd, Trevor Beggs. Sports, man. If you don't watch sports religiously, you don't get to experience the practice that is being resilient. And that's unfortunate, okay? Anyways, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, join the Discord, link in the bio, talk about the Canucks while you're on the toilet, and Beggsy, sign us out.
All right. Shout out to you and you from the everydayers to the first-time listeners. We love each and every one of you. Coming up tomorrow, Nils Höglander. Are the Canucks going to trade him? What? Who knows? If you want to find out what we think, stay tuned for tomorrow's episode. But for now, I'm Trevor Beggs. That guy's Kyle Bound. And you've been listening to Locked on Canucks.
You're Locked on Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks.